ready to file a Title IX lawsuit against Rick Berman. It's Feature Please, Heinous Trip of Warp 5. My name is Joseph.
I too appreciate starships that don't have door locks. I'm your co-host, Peter.
Peter, what episode of Star Trek did we watch this week?
I'm not ready to go there yet.
Oh, do we need a moment? Do you need time?
I need to go back to fucking Extinction, which was so terrible that somehow I forgot as we were shitting all over it, as I was shitting all over it. Two key quotes I meant to bring up. Okay, so Extinction, which is my front runner for the worst episode of this season, and I think I might even consider it for being worse than Precious Cargo.
Oh, I absolutely disagree, but go on.
Well, I got two people backing me up on this one. All right. First one, according to TrekWeb, LeVar Burton, who directed that piece of shit, went to the producers and told them he was, quote, ashamed that he had directed this episode.
I mean, it was bad. I, too, would feel shame.
10 years after this episode aired, Bran Braga called Extinction, quote, one of the singularly most embarrassing episodes of Star Trek I've ever been involved with.
That one I think is a bit of a reach.
It's the truth. It's the truth. The truth hurts, and that episode fucking hurt my face to watch.
Not only is Precious Cargo manifestly worse than Extinction, I think that A Night in Sickbay was worse. I think that there's a half dozen episodes of Voyager that are worse. It's bad. I simply think that the bad we have experienced across the breadth of our reviews, there are some choice examples that are certainly worse than Extinction. I think Extinction at least had an interesting idea, and it had commitment on the part of the actors to try and deliver. It was a spectacular failure, but I will grant so much grace to something that tries over something that is just lazy and bad.
Well, while we're still there, real quick, because I do want it to become a tradition that we stick with. Did you have any after the fact Starfleet standard operating procedures you wanted to add for Extinction?
Yeah, what would you add, Peter? This is your bit. What would you add?
In times of senior officer feral mutations, you are authorized to use the experimental transporter technology to retrieve wayward comrades.
So there was one other thing I wanted to bring up before we get into this episode, since you're not ready and you need time.
Mm-hmm.
I won the vote on the season.
You didn't win the vote.
I won the vote. The results are in, and I won by a crushing 57 to 43% majority.
You did.
If this were a presidential election, they'd call that a landslide, Peter. They call that a landslide because I won.
First of all, okay, and stop me if you heard this one before.
Okay.
But Facebook interfered in the election.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Are we claiming election interference?
I've never seen a poll. I posted that poll from the mobile app. I've never seen there be a time duration on a poll before.
It's the default is to have a time duration. Yes,
really?
It is. Yes, it is. I'm sorry that you didn't know how your poll worked, but
I also see that when I went to click,
election day was over, I was victorious.
When I went to go click and see what the results were for people who were voting that it was season 3's intro was worse than 1 and 2, not only did it not show me who voted for what, it removed my fucking vote. And when I tried to click back, it said I wasn't able to vote in that anymore.
Are you saying that your voting machine didn't work?
Yeah, I'm saying that Zuckerberg fucked this vote.
That's why I emailed him on the DL. I needed to make sure that the votes were properly counted, and you weren't an eligible voter.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why you were removed, No,
I think in reality it was about 50-50 because we had a couple people chime off in the comments that didn't get a chance to vote either. Now, in reality, comparing the season 1 and 2 intro to the season 3 intro is like saying You can
Which
get
brand of turpentine is the most delicious?
which foot would you rather get kicked in the dick with? Now, the right foot is the dominant foot, so you can kick harder with that, but the left shoe has dog shit on it. So you can pick your poison.
I
And
mean, neither is good, but one is still better than the other, is the way I would describe it.
6 1 half dozen the other, man. It's bad, and unfortunately, season 3 is badder. This episode, however, we're moving into episode 4 of season 3. Rajiin. This first aired October 1st, 2003. Teleplay by Brett Friedman and Chris Black. Story by Paul Brown and Brett Friedman. So Black and Brown. Interesting there. Directed by Mike Veiger, who has been around the block several times now.
I'd like to correct the record on something here. I mentioned at the close of our episode last week that the guest star here, the actress, was a Playboy model. I was a little off on that. Her mom was the Playboy model. Nikita Ager is the name of the actress. And as far as you and I have been able to determine, she has kept her clothes firmly on over the course of her acting career, which apparently ended sometime in the mid 2010s.
And she's a real estate agent now in Florida, I believe.
You know what? That seems like a fantastic job to get into after a D- acting career. It's like exactly the thing to do. I'm pretty sure the lady who plays Esri Dax is also a real estate agent, but in Los Angeles. Come to think of it, it's the Trek actor thing, I suppose.
And just real quick, this is Memory Alpha too. We're talking here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nikita Ager is the actress who played Rajiin in Star Trek Enterprise 3rd season episode Rajiin. Next paragraph. She is the daughter of Playboy model Barbara Ager. Like, how the fuck are you going to lead someone's personal bio with that? Like, that's the most important thing to say about the Star Trek guest actor is like, her mom showed her boobs.
Well,
Shitty.
Yeah, it is shitty. And this episode's all about her, really. And what you and I were discussing this episode in advance, and I came up with a way to describe the phenomenon. We were comparing it to the phrase late stage capitalism. Because late stage capitalism is a phrase to describe how, like, in the modern era, you often have these circumstances that seem to be pseudo value generating enterprises within capitalism that don't seem to be generating value at all. Demonstrates that perhaps the system requires reform or significant change, because what it's doing right now is just grinding its gears and not being particularly effective at what it's supposed to do, and instead relying on weird uh, niche things to try and propel itself forward despite itself. This is late stage Berman era Trek right here. We're at it. We are fucking bankrupt on ideas. We don't know what to do to capture an audience attention. So we're going to go all the way in on boobs. This is just going to be an episode about boobs, about titties, about sensual touching, about a lot of close talking, a lot of face rubbing, a lot of innuendo, and we're going to make that the reason why people watch the show. And it's just never a good look for Star Trek, and it never will be. But as time went on, they just went more and more and more into this, and this might really be the peak right here.
The Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
I was going to suggest that we label this episode Night Trap in honor of the Sega CD full motion video game that caused that, along with Mortal Kombat, caused quite a bit of congressional attention on the video game industry, because Night Trap was about a bunch of women in scantily clad nightgowns and lingerie running about a house while being chased by monsters, which is certainly the plot line that this follows along. But in light of your little oversight in there as to the slippery slope that Enterprise is quickly going down, I think we might also consider for a title on this episode just calling it for what it is, which is Guns and Tits. A lot of guns, a
Yeah.
lot of gunfights, a lot of tits. It is what it is, man.
I
Uh,
mean, it's still not the worst the show has given us, but the rot is there, and we do start on a pretty solid note. We start with another Terminus Systems Legion of Doom meeting, and we've got this guy who's apparently in charge of making whatever this weapon is that they're developing to destroy Earth. His name is Degra. He is one of the more human looking of the Xindi. And he's talking about how he's had a setback, that apparently his lab exploded that he was using to develop this stuff. And he makes quite an impassioned argument to his fellow Legion members. They're like, yeah, making a weapon that destroys a planet, it's fucking hard, guys. It's going to be dangerous. We all knew that. I need more time to be able to put this thing together. And his the insects and the reptiles who are clearly if these are all bad guys, they're definitely the worst guys. Are like, we need to develop the other weapon. We need to create plan B. We need to do the bio weapon. We need to hit him with the mustard gas instead.
I thought that plan B was we fly over and blow Enterprise up. Because the way that I've been reading this situation is that the plan is to develop the Death Star to its full potential, that the initial attack on Florida and Brazil or Argentina, whatever it was a test of the super laser's capabilities. And, it was pretty good. But they need to keep working on it. And in the interim, Enterprise has showed up and started snooping around, and kind of the silly turn of events, the Xindi don't just fucking stomp them out. And something I'm going to complain about later in the episode and really focus on is clearly the Xindi have a technological superiority to Earth's best. And we will see that black and white demonstration as Enterprise is rated. But for right now, they're like, let's just ignore Enterprise, wait and see if they're doing recon. There might be an attack fleet following ahead, and we don't want to tip them off where we're at.
Yeah,
At
I
this
think
point,
that's the key rationale is they're hidden. No one knows where the Xindi is. And they feel like if they tip their hand too hard in taking out Enterprise, that they could reveal their location, and suddenly Earth and all of their homies could show up and fuck them up.
well, let's talk about that, because now there's an interesting consequence. Let's call it that. Clearly, the Legion of Doom has an eye on Enterprise's activities, and they are not simply flying over and blowing Enterprise up because, like you said, if Enterprise quits phoning home, then Earth is going to be like, that must be where the Xindi are. Send everything over there and let's go fight. So what I would like to see is some sort of an episode come down the pipe where more space pirates, because they've been up to this point, it's extinction was not really ship threatening. That could have killed Archer, but there's enough people on Enterprise report and say, yeah, he turned into a fucking werewolf and got attacked by flamethrowers.
We had to shoot him with silver bullets. He's dead now.
Yeah. But the space pirate episode where we finally had someone die, and then what was before that?
That was the
mining
opener.
episode.
Yeah.
Which they were just going to be sold into slavery. That wasn't the Xindi coming to kill him. There's other shit in the Delphic Expanse that might kill Enterprise. So I think it'd be cool to have the Xindi being like, we can't let these dudes die under mysterious circumstances, or it's going to look like we did it, and then everybody's going to come to see Xindi antagonist bodyguards just hanging in the cut and be like, oh, you thought you were going to attack this fucking ship and kill him? No. Slap. And the Enterprise being like, here's wreckage. This was a ship that was chasing us, 2 weeks ago. And it seems like someone's blown them up. Who could be doing this? Who Who could be our mysterious benefactors?
I think it's less they don't want them to be destroyed and more that they don't want to destroy them themselves. Because if they do that, they leave too much potential evidence of their own involvement that could trace them back. And I think that they established that pretty well, actually, particularly in the first episode of like how difficult it's been to like find where the fuck these guys are, to the point where like just the rumor of where one Xindi is was enough for them to just divert all of their energy into finding the guy to get any information.
Hmm.
So secrecy has been established as their best weapon. No one knows where they are. They have as much time as they need to make this thing, as long as no one finds them. But lo and behold, an Earth ship is sniffing around the perimeter and starting to pick up the trail a little bit here and there. So now we've got a time problem, because if they get here before we're finished and they relate that information back home, the Earth could interrupt us before we're actually able to launch this stuff. And maybe Earth technology isn't good enough, but the threat we pose to them could easily draw in the Vulcans, who are good enough to beat us. So I get it. I think it makes sense. Their caution makes sense. I agree, though, that they haven't been too explicit in that regard, but I feel like they did establish it, at least within the continuity of this season.
Looking around the Legion of Doom, it's an interesting collection of monster people. And the first thing that stands out to me is that I don't recognize any of these. To my knowledge, all of these races are brand new. And for them all to be brand new means that ultimately none of these guys are going to turn out to be part of the Federation. So I have to wonder, is the Xindi alliance, and I'm still being, this first time I'm watching this, I don't know if Xindi is a coalition, like an anti-federation, like an evil federation. I don't know if like all these guys have the same genetic ancestor and they're all just like mutations of each other or what. But the fact that I've never seen any 24th century Star Trek involving any of these guys means that either they are permabanned from the Federation, or ultimately by the end of Enterprise, something is going to happen that is going to create the self-fulfilling prophecy where the Xindi are eradicated and do not exist in any capacity in the 21st century. But out of the group,
I'm happy to say they actually tried to address pretty much everything you just said. You know, like they're self-aware that like this is a prequel. If we're going to establish this weird circumstance, we need to figure out where these guys stand in the continuity we've already built. So I'll be interested on your take when they start revealing that information.
Also, going around the Legion of Doom, I would say that the SeaWorld fish people are probably the most reasonable, and the guys I would be the most likely to want to talk to at a party.
Yeah, they seem real chill. It's floating in their tanks.
Well, you know, they're reasonable. Like, hey,
they're manatees. You know, they just want to float around and get hit by propellers.
Slightly murderous manatees that are like, listen, we knew there'd be setbacks. We got to just take it easy. We can't go out there and kill them just yet. And then there's I don't know if they're supposed to be reptilian. The green guys that by the end are the ones that actually hired Rajiin. But it is impossible to look at these guys in any capacity whatsoever and not just see the bad guy from Galaxy Quest.
Exactly. Yeah, low rent Galaxy Quest villain.
He wasn't low rent. That guy actually looked way better than these dudes did.
No, that's what I'm saying. These dudes are the low rent version.
Especially in the end, like when you see their shock troops come on to Enterprise and they're wearing like shiny purple jumpsuits.
Yeah, they look like they're
glitter.
They look like they should be in a disco club.
They look like they should be in a fucking off-Broadway hokey sci-fi musical. When did Galaxy Quest come out and what year? This is 2003. Galaxy Quest had to be 90s?
Let's see here. It's a shame we don't remember this from when we reviewed it, by the way. That was originally a Patreon episode, and if you like our show and you'd like to subscribe to our Patreon, please do. By the time you listen to this, I can assure you there will be a review of Reanimator that is a banger. and you should listen to it. There is filled with information, deep lore information on Peter and I's background that sort of illuminates why we do this anyway, and it's also a really fun discussion about a very interesting movie. So you should check that out. But Galaxy Quest is a movie from 1999.
So the reptilian Xindi, I would say, without a doubt, are a knockoff of Galaxy Quest.
I think that's fair. It was 4 years prior.
And I would say their temperament fits what the bad guy in Galaxy Quest acted like. And that's some real, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's like when Dave Chappelle did the Prince episodes.
But Charlie Murphy's Real Hollywood Stories.
But then Prince turned around and took Dave Chappelle dressed as Prince and made it his cover of an album.
Yes. Although the real unreasonable ones are clearly the Zordaks, right?
Zorak, yes.
The Zoraks. They're always just wanting to murder things.
Yeah, insects are some motherfuckers. It would be great if there was just some magma men.
So after the Legion of Doom is done talking, we cut back to Enterprise, where I think the very first thing is Trip and T'Pol having another touchy-feely session where they were doing Vulcan chiropractic shit.
Speaking of hot and steamy magma men, Moltar, that's the name of them. Back we go to this goddamn thing. Now this time when Trip shows up, no crock pots full of raw peaches.
No, it's all business except, T'Pol's still wearing children's clothing and Trip doesn't have his shirt on.
Which I want to talk about that.
Okay. I'm glad you do.
Are those pajamas? Or is that her, massage uniform that she has designated? Because if every time you go over to someone's house, they are wearing the exact same clothing, which just so happens to be a child's small shirt with 2 buttons, plenty of cleavage, and all the floating ribs you can handle, I think you'd have to say, what's going on here? Do you not have access to a washing machine? Why are you always wearing this?
Is it like her gi or something to do Vulcan chiropractic with? I don't know.
Do you think that T'Pol would be willing to? The whole thing's fucking ridiculous. And I was listening to our episode for, I think it was episode 2 this season, how ridiculous it is that they're forcing this thing to happen, because having them have been drawn together organically based on their mutual traumatic events going on in their life and all the other good relationship building they did prior to this, trying to sell us on the idea that T'Pol's just helping a coworker fall asleep by these intimate massages wearing lingerie is ridiculous. Would she do this for just, for crewmen, I don't know, the security guys that were throwing everybody in the brig when the space ghosts were attacking?
This is Trip's entire objection during the scene of listen, T'Pol, I think everyone's starting to think we're fucking. Yeah, you think? You think that? You go into her room every night while she's barely wearing clothes and you're barely wearing clothes? Talking about how you're touching each other the whole time? You think people think you're fucking?
Moaning and groaning. And to which she replies, so what? Which, it doesn't seem logical. It doesn't seem rational.
Even if you want to say, well, it doesn't matter if others are gossiping as long as you're securing the medical care you need. I'm willing to endure whatever this stupid human gossip is as long as this is working for you. Instead, she treats it very personally to say, who cares if people think we're fucking, Trip? What does that matter, Trip? I mean, it's such a not Vulcan response that she.
You want these hands on you or not, Trip? Yeah, maybe the more reasonable reply would have been, perhaps we should relocate these sessions to sickbay. And then Trip be like, I think it'll be fine here.
Could you imagine Phlox just in the background, ooh, touch each other some more?
Oh no, don't look at me though. Don't involve me. Denoblian men are very shy.
I like it when people look at me.
It'll be Phlox in the fucking closet, peeking through the slits. furiously masturbating.
After that, we get continuity, albeit not of something you wish for there to be continuity. But I kind of like that they like talk about it, which is Archer's having difficulty sleeping
Years.
because he's still getting over being another species.
Years of wishing that Voyager had any ability to follow up on a traumatic fucking near-death experience, and here I get it, and I'm like, you're wasting it on fucking extinction. It caught me so off guard that as he wakes up from having his bad dream, he turns on the lights, he looks in the mirror, he's covered in like space herpes,
Yeah.
one of which is right on the corner of his mouth, and he scratches it off. And I was like, oh my God. He's like, yeah, he's got space herpes. And I'm trying to think in my head, like, who did Archer actually bang? Is this from like the fucking Pokemon back on Rogue Planet? Like, what's he got the space clap from?
Yennefer of the Olive Garden.
That'd be a good one. I'd take it for that.
Yeah.
And then Phlox is, reminds us, oh no, if you'll recall, last episode was that god awful one that the director LeVar Burton disowned. That's just remnants from your crazy 4-minute metamorphosis into a chameleon man or whatever you were. It's like, fuck, man. I feel like we can even go through Enterprise and find like crazy weird like crewman stick brain who got all fucking I would have loved a follow-up episode of him like looking in the mirror and like, oh my God, and like pulling a fucking twig out of his cheek or something.
Eye or shit, yeah. Oh boy.
Give me some fucking Cronenberg body horror there where like the dude shits a literal pebble.
Well, you finally got the continuity you wanted. Now you want to send it back. Like, this burger's too done.
I like Archer.
Ask for medium rare.
Before Archer had a chance to get up and like scratch the space herpes off, he's like flinching and making these grunty noises. And I'm like, is Archer having an erotic dream? I can only assume this. He's like having a wet dream of getting beaten about the face, neck, and chest area.
Well, we'll get to that. In fact, the next scene is the mission, which is they are headed to I don't know what to call it, like an aquatic planet.
Well, hold on. We got a special shout out we got to throw out here first.
Oh, yeah. Crewman Cutler's the last reference.
That one caught me. I thought she died like between season 1 and season 2, the actress.
No, remember she was in season 2. If
was
you recall.
She?
Yeah.
Where?
I think it was early. I'm trying to. It's all floated into the
backed off her way faster. I mean, they were making it seem like in her memory alpha entry that like they were really gearing her up to be like strong ancillary cast. And if they only showed her once in all of season 2 and she was still alive, then playing this fucking card like, oh no, we had great, huge plans for her. We're going to blow her up. Like, that's bullshit.
I mean, they did radically change things in season 3. I could definitely see them deciding, like, oh, let's make use of the Crewman Cutler because we've already introduced her. They already had a relationship with Phlox. Like, let's lean into doing the continuity thing, right? Like, I could actually see that being true. But this is the last time she's mentioned on the show because, unfortunately, the actress dies a month later. Apparently she broke her arm off screen because of all of the anomalies that they're trying to get this Trillium D stuff to be able to counteract. So rest in peace to the actress who I believe you found out was like buried in near where you live, which is an odd coincidence. But
all roads lead to Columbus.
The show would have been much better with her having a greater role on it. It's a shame that it wasn't able to happen.
Maybe she would have just got caught by the Berman clause and,
she too would have been sexually exploited in this episode. Certainly none of the other female cast were spared their dignity.
She had a big plan. She was going to be walking down the hall when an anomaly was going to hit and throw her to the ceiling and her pants were going to shoot off like a fucking Three Stooges bit.
It's the Patrick Stewart. Oh, I just take their clothes are gone. I've already seen everything. So the mission is they're going to like an aqua planet that has this big like floating dock. And there is a nice shot of Enterprise like from below, and you see the shuttle go to the planet. And they're there to meet a chemist who they had spoken to earlier who claim to have a formula for synthesizing this Trillium D substance that they have found out is really good material to have apparently on your hull so that you can not have it be spatially
Twist your
rearranged.
fucking face off like that dude. How cool that it's a planet that's just water world and flotilla cities that are merchant hubs.
Yeah, neat flavor.
They
Very neat
explain
flavor.
nothing, and it just makes it like, okay, this place has a good atmosphere. Nobody owns it because it's just a big ocean. For all we know, there might be some fucking Tom Paris wet dream sea life underneath there, but spaceships just float here, and we basically treat it like the city of Freeport and EverQuest. You had a bunch of pushy vendors. Also, slavery's legal, so get ready for that. And hey, you want to
It's a
buy
real
some
mixed bag. You want to buy some chickens? Do you want to buy some people? You can buy either here. You want to buy an egg? Someone like offers them an egg, and then you're
you
like,
want to buy
no, I don't.
Coke?
Yeah,
There's a quote
black tar
unquote
heroin.
chemist.
We got that. Like, come on.
Yeah, that quote unquote chemist sniffing everything. Okay.
They go to meet him. I love the chemist. The
Oh yeah.
chemist is the protagonist of this episode. He's perfectly helpful. He provides the recipe for the stuff in exchange for barter. He even says like, hey, there was some Xindi here. I heard you're interested. I'll add that to the pile of stuff that
I'm
we'll
gonna
negotiate
upsell you.
over. Yeah, I'll upsell you. And in the end, you know what he was looking for? He was looking for 11 herbs and spices. This motherfucker wants to make some Kentucky Fried Chicken, and he's going to need some salt. He's going
Just
to need some
looking for
black
a little
pepper,
nose candy. That's
a little
all.
cayenne. Like, I love this guy. They make the deal. You're like, what the fuck is he going for? And then Trip pulls the suitcase around and shows it to him. And goes, wars on my planet have been fought over these, and it's spices. And it's like, what a great flavor win. Yeah, I bet this shit would be wild to someone from another planet that's never experienced it.
Trip
You
need to
know,
lay on him and be like, he who controls the spices.
controls the universe.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps the most wild thing about this chemist is that in the end, like, armed thugs don't just show up and try and accost him. I feel like this is the first clean transaction that Enterprise has been able to have.
Yes. Like, they trade for what they asked for, and they got what they asked for. He even gives them warnings like, hey, it's going to be liquid. It's going to be super volatile. Follow the directions. Otherwise, it will explode. But, like, he's pretty helpful, all things considered. He's probably the most helpful person they've met in the entirety of the Delphi Expanse so far.
So let's talk about the Trillium D real quick here. It is a must-have. If you do not have Trillium D insulation on your hull in the Telthic Expanse, it's not just, innocent things like coffee cups floating upside down waiting to make a mess. Like, faces can get ripped off, engines can blow up,
Klingons can get turned inside out.
Klingons can get turned inside out, Vulcans can create community theater event Horizon. It's a bad time. So this Trillium D, super important. You had the mining colony, the slave colony that Captain Planet villain was running, harvesting it, where it's basically asbestos and it's giving everybody cancer and sick. Finding out that you could synthesize it, why have a slave planet where you're mining the stuff? I think a little bit more emphasis had to be put on the fact that, like, it takes really advanced technologies to be able to synthesize this stuff, and also, yeah, it's like working with fucking dynamite. So
I know, and I think that's established here. It's like coal being liquidized into oil. That's a real technology that exists and was actually developed in the 40s. Okay. So we've always had the capacity to take coal, which is an extremely common substance, and you could kick over a rock in North America and find coal somewhere, and turn it into something much more valuable and much more rare, which is oil. But if you are to do that, it's going to take time. It's going to take a ton of energy, and it's going to take technological investment to do so. And so doing so ends up driving up the costs per unit of having the oil through that source. And Trillium D is treated in much the same way. It's a very neat detail. But while they're at Freeport here, they go to the merchant that apparently the Xindi visited when they were there, and they come across the Ho
Space
train.
Space Hooters.
Yes, they go to the slaver, the local slaver, the local neighborhood friendly slaver, who's a dude who has like a butt head, like it's like two giant wrinkly ass cheeks.
Let me
He's like
take
got a
this, Joe.
code head.
Let me
What's
take
that?
this.
Okay,
This dude's straight up Mojo Jojo from Powerpuff Girls.
you're right. He's a non monkey version of Mojo Jojo. You're right.
If it wasn't an exposed brain behind a glass dome, like conceptually, this guy looks like Mojo Jojo with some minimal revisions.
Or Kaya D. Mundi from Star Wars. You know, the Jedi with the big cone head.
Yeah, the butt cheekiness having like membraned ripples is I think makes it a little bit more Mojo Jojo, along with the charisma this guy's got. So Freeport's an interesting city in that anything goes. All of people's wares are out on display. And as we'll find out that when push comes to shove, nobody's going to ultimately have your back, which makes Mojo Jojo's business venture extremely questionable to have like all of your very attractive space hookers laying about the place. And at any given point, it's one space pimp versus whatever Nausicaans might blow through there looking to like take what's yours.
I guess, you know, he's got a gat for himself, but that doesn't seem like very much. There's not like collars on these girls. They're just hanging out, looking sexy. You know, this the slaver tries to first sell Archer on the I guess is a no, it wasn't the lizard girl. They said that's what the Xindi bought. The Xindi bought two like lizard women. Just to sell her on some other sort of green skinned sex worker
Interesting,
who
there's
has
no
no lines
Orions
and
in there.
she's just supposed to sit there looking seductive, like yes.
If you thought that False Prophets, which we titled Underboob for Days, was the most extreme underboob bikini outfits that you were going to see in Star Trek, you're wrong, because along comes this thing. And how crazy is it that this episode gets so much more shamelessly provocative, skinamaxy, that I forgot these hookers even fucking existed.
Yeah, like this is the entry level of the sexual exploitation we'll see. Just a bunch of ladies in skin tight, revealing clothing, lounging about, looking hot, in weird alien makeup. That's what this shot is, and of course, the centerpiece is a lady that can only be described as being in sparkly lingerie, standing seductively in the background, making eyes at Archer the whole time. And that is the titular Rajiin. And the slaver tries to sell her to Archer. Archer's like, I fucking her the whole time, but is like, no, I gotta go. I have to go do other things that aren't here because I have to do them. And on their way out, wouldn't you know it, she tries to escape into his arms, and the slaver comes up, tries to say, "Hey, merchandise, bring it back." Archer says, "No, I am a gallant gentleman. She does not want to be with you. She wants to leave, and I'm going to facilitate that." And rather than his security chief intervening to protect the captain, he's like, "Nah, I know my boss needs a few head wounds here. So get a, throw him through a wall and,
These
punch each other
pretty
a few
ladies
times."
aren't really his thing, but you pop him a couple fresh ones across the jaw, this dude's going to be rock hard.
Yeah, it's like, don't worry. He's just getting, this is foreplay for later for him. He's going to
Archer
think about
goes,
these head wounds later.
Listen, Mojo Jojo. From Pokemon to Playboy models, I'm there to White Knight, and woe be the evil man to get between me and Milady. So, They get in this fist fight in someone else's stall and totally fucking trash the place. And this is why I'm telling you, Waterworld's a bad place to do business. And I got a feeling while Mojo Jojo's getting his ass beat, all the rest of his space hoes are like fucking just taking off.
Oh, he's gone? Let's get out of here, ladies.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
This is a bad business model. This was a
Yeah.
bad day for his assistant Hokeep.
There
to
is
not
there
show
are
up
no
for work.
town guards showing up to aggro in the neutral city when the Horde fights the Alliance around here.
Yeah, this is how you know this isn't a real Sony rendition of Freeport, because those guards, what's his name? Sergeant Steele? Was that it?
I never played EverQuest as a WoW guy, so this would be like going to Gadget Stand and there being no fucking...
I think it was Sergeant Steele. That dude killed me a lot. EverQuest is a very racist game. They did not like the Dark Elves. Playboy model is really the only way to describe this lady too. Like that look, maybe that's why the making mention of her mom is the primary thing in her memory alpha entry. But
she's descended from it and it shows. I mean, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. It is a look.
It's a look.
She's got it.
I thought she was going to be more telepathic than she ended up, because the exchange that she has while Archer's like locked eyes with her, I figured she was like telepathying, please help me, I have info on the Xindi, you must, whatever.
Yeah, it's just real straight up like seduction powers is, I think, the way to describe it. She can just kind of
entrancement.
Yeah, she can entrance people. And she worked that magic and got the White Knight activation, and they bounce with her. And when we return to Enterprise, she's already on the bio bed in sickbay. And her entrancement powers are good enough that even Phlox is like feeling a little uncomfortable, kind of like shifting his feet, being a little bashful, but says, yeah, she's, I don't know her species, but she's in good health. She identifies herself as Rajiin. She, says that she's ready to fuck the captain whenever he wants. And he's like, nah, we don't do slavery. That's cool. We'll get you guest quarters and then we'll take you back to your own planet, I guess. Like, why not? We're good guys. And she says, thank you. And, that's
he
it.
Mentions if you would like to explore the ship, you're welcome to do so. And then she says, well, do you have any sort of erotic lingerie stores or other places where I could buy strip club attire? And he's like, well, yeah, absolutely. Actually, Deck 3 has a Cirilla's, which is the local...
Crewman Cutler just died and she was a real hoe, so you can just raid her closet.
Sure, yeah. I don't know if they have like some sort of early access replicators that are able to...
The fact that she has access to a bunch of clothing that seems extraordinarily inappropriate to wear on a Starfleet vessel seems a bit much, but it is still better than what she starts with. I guess that's really all I can say.
Maybe that'll be the next poll that we put up.
which outfit was the least acceptable? They have a meal, and it's when Rajiin makes it clear, like, yes, I'm a sex slave. I've had a lot of owners. The last time I was on a starship, I was stuck in the cargo hold, except to go bang the captain. It's what I do. And Archer is trying to be as hard as possible to be a gentleman while also being hard as possible. And it's the whole like shortness of breath, a lot of hesitation, but he's fighting off the urge. And fortunately for him, he gets a call down to talk to Trip and to Paul, who said, I think we've got the code cracked on making the Trillium D, but this shit can get very spicy. So we're going to set up a lab in like the safe from explodey part of the ship, so that just in case this breaks bad, we don't, turn our ship into a meth house.
Like, now, if this was the USS Voyager.
Yeah, it would be right next to Warp Core, obviously. Obviously. It would be next to Warp Core, and 7 of 9 would then shoot it up. In that order.
Yes. Yeah. So really a big fat gold star to the writing team on this for diverting from the tried and true Voyager style. We've got a crazy science experiment. Let's do it right next to the Doomsday Machine.
Not on the NX-01, boys. We're doing this someplace safe. We've got some OSHA guidelines. It's all been read in the past. We want some check marks here.
It was very obvious very quickly to me that Rajiin was a spy.
Oh, sure. They're not trying to hide it.
Yeah, they're not trying to hide anything, both in terms of costuming or portrayal here. They have that little dinner. Like you said, Archer excuses himself. We check back into Trip and is that where the explosion actually happens, or does that come later?
It comes later. This is when they cut back then to Archer's chilling in his office, and she comes by, and we get the first seduction scene.
And I think she's already in a new outfit by that point, too, like an even more
correct.
Scandalous booby outfit.
Comes in, hey, Captain, I just want to talk. Can we talk? Just as seductive as possible. And, sure enough, Archer's like, yeah, we can talk. I want to get up right next to you. I want to thank you. That's unnecessary. No, don't worry. I'm just going to start making out with you anyway and rub my hands all over you.
Let me show you my mutant power. I can shoot x-rays all over the fucking place and create what's actually a pretty cool visual effect where as she moves her glowing mutant hands up and down Archer's body, we see a cool anatomical view of Archer through his skin. And we will later come to find out that what this is doing is presumably it's an innate racial ability she has to probe other organics and collect biometric data on them. That, or I don't think it would be. No, because they already paint like a picture that she's very biologically advanced with her very complicated iris setup.
Yeah, she's a complicated organism.
I think it would have been cool if she was a Beta Z. Or Beta Z or Betazoid? Beta Z.
Betazoid. Beta Z is the name of the planet.
Right. This would have been a cool introduction to that race, especially seeing the first contact between Earth and a Betazoid being an evil spy causing problems for the first captain of the Enterprise.
I will say, I'm trying not to talk about the show much anymore since you and I are going to review it in some capacity, but one great thing about Picard Season 3 is I think it's the very first time I've seen Betazoid powers portrayed in a way that makes sense. Like the writers are like, oh, we should probably do justice to this idea.
They make perfect sense.
Yeah.
The ability to swing a space pipe and murder another man.
And stuff them into a plasma locker so there's nothing
just
but
put them in
left.
the wall. That makes perfect sense. And Lon Suter introduced us to those core Betazoid concepts perfectly. So
it's true. Rest in peace, Lon.
So she starts probing him, and there's a cool visual trick they play here, and hats off to Mike V'ger, because as she's going up and down his head, as she's probing his spine, I really like the spine shots where they show what's going on underneath there. She gets what she wants, and suddenly there's this snap, and she's not there with her hands on him. They're on opposite sides of the room, and they paint it off like Archer's just been daydreaming about naughty time with alien Playboy. And she's like, cool, thanks. I'm going to go walk around if that's all right. And he's like, yeah, go ahead.
And Archer's just stood there like, I haven't been this blue balled since that Vulcan choked me and I didn't complete.
I was thrown about my own office and slapped like a disobedient child.
That's when you have the explosion in the Trillium D lab. So the stuff is tricky. They hadn't quite dialed in how to make it. They blow up the little canister. They get a little frustrated. And that's when T'Pol's like, let's try again in the morning. But before that, come by my quarters. I want you to get some good sleep. So I'm going to have to get into...
Jerk you off.
Get into my child's uniform and touch you a bunch. And Trip's like, oh gosh, well, I have to see my hot coworker in no clothing, feel me up. I suppose I will.
In the old days, you have to pay attractive women to touch you like this. This scene, and I hate saying it, but I have to acknowledge the precedent that's been set. And what's really missing in these science experiment scenes, and there's no way to avoid it, is Reed.
Yeah.
We have used and I've criticized and said that the science people here, the smartest people doing experimental shit, should be exactly these two. And unfortunately, the only time we get to see them is when they have to work together before going off to their steamy, personal romance. But I've had 2 seasons of being told that Reed's the guy to be involved in this stuff.
Yeah,
And
he's a mechanical genius. He's good at inventing
not just
things.
Mechanical software, too. I mean, this guy's overclocking phasers, making shields, hot wiring ship phasers. I almost think he would have added something interesting to the scene in being an annoying third wheel and
like maybe like emphasizing the assumption that of everyone that they're in the other relationship, which they use like that as background to say like Reed said something shitty to Trip, but not actually on screen.
Yeah. Or
just have him say it on screen. How about that? Do that instead.
I mean, he's already a fucking annoying piece of shit. Or have him be this annoying third wheel and it clear that they would like to be alone with each other and kind of force them to admit that there might be something more there. I don't know. But you've still established him as the intellectual powerhouse on the ship, and for something as important as synthesizing this Trillium D,
he should probably be there.
Or maybe he could have been there, with his newfangled EM shields that could have like protected the explosion from going out further.
The next scene we get is the I guess I will say this: Hoshi's dignity is preserved better than anyone else's. So Rajiin is like fucking with the transporter. Hoshi comes by.
So here's my SOP recommendation for Starfleet in this one. The transporter shouldn't just be in the fucking hallway.
Yes. Yeah. Put that in a room. Have someone there. Call them the transporter chief. That way people can't just wander up to it.
That way, if you have to beam the captain who has turned into a werewolf up and you're worried about biocontamination, like you can just lock the door and things will be a little bit more chill. But yeah, Rajiin's like, oh, this is a transporter. I'm going to learn how to work this now. And suddenly, surprise, a wild Hoshi appears and says, hey, hi.
I'm also in this episode. Hello.
Hi. Do you remember me? And she's not talking to Rajiin. She's talking to you, the audience. She goes, my name's Hoshi. I'm on this show too. Remember me?
I do. She was in last week's episode as a weird monster person.
I want to be on screen. What can I do to be on screen? And then Rajiin's like, well, we can have a little lesbian moment real quick. And she's like, yes, please. I need to pay my rent.
I mean, we can say that she got to keep her clothes on. She didn't have to kiss anybody. She didn't have anyone's hands on her. So she got that going for her. But yeah, they're like, oh, I want to learn your tongue. Can I learn your tongue and my tongue? I mean, the vibe was unquestionable. So they fade to black on that by having the turbo lift close on those two. And then finally we arrive at the main event. And that is Rajiin visiting T'Pol. And that's
let's call it for what it is, and it's Rajiin basically raping T'Pol.
Yes.
Which, for anybody who's keeping track at home, this is now the second time T'Pol has had someone psychically force themselves on her. This time being considerably less violent, and judging by the fact that they made sure her nipples were hard through her little thin shirt while she's being like sensually touched and told to just let it happen and don't fight it. And that's a quote.
Yes, it is. This is it. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about late stage Berman. We're not like scolds. We're not moral scolds. We're we enjoy the '90s hotties. We get it. You do a little eye candy. Keep it interesting. And then regarding nothing wrong with something beautiful, we're with you. Jesus fucking Christ, dude! Like, what is this aside from just straight up exploitation? This is
On
just
one side of the coin,
core. This is super soft core porn. This is what you're making.
you have super sexually aggressive Jolene Blaylock, who is slathered up in grease and forcing herself on flocks because it hurts and she needs the D. And then on the other side of the coin, you have, again, super erect nipples, heavy, sultry breathing, uh, play rape scene between her and Rajiin. And then along comes, speaking of white knights, here comes Trip ringing the doorbell because he wants his free massage and nobody answers. So he rings the doorbell again and nobody answers. And at this point, like, the doorbell's like bringing T'Pol out of her hypnotism, and she's like, no, no me, no, stop, get off me. And then Trip like rings the doorbell 3 more times, and it's like, all right, dude, like, she just almost died in an explosion. Maybe she's in the shower. Maybe
chill.
she fell asleep. Like, I get you want your fucking back massage, but like, you're being a little pushy here to the point where he asks the bridge where she's at. They say she's in there, and he just overrides the fucking security code and just goes in her goddamn. Like, that's how bad he wants that back rub. The idea that he would think that something bad enough happened to her that he's going to force his way in is a big return to the old jump to conclusion map. But he walks in, sure enough, she's laid out on the floor. He runs over to check on her, and now the super top secret A++ baddie spy bitch, who could have just slipped out the door and ran off, jumps from the shadows, screams at him, throws a vase at his head like he's Archer, busts him over the head, and then like shrieks and runs off into the night.
It isn't even super effective at actually stopping Trip. He's like stunned, not knocked
She
unconscious.
could have jumped on him with her like fucking electric eel hands and like sexed him up and, put him in the sexy zone and got his
sailor
biological
out.
maybe tied him up.
So
tied up to Paul.
She runs. There is a chase scene. She seduces the first guard that she runs into, grabs her face pistol. We get plenty of Reed in this episode once again, holding his gun like a Nancy boy. Like, I just no one's telling him he's fucking this up, I guess. Like, like waving around and pointing it like you would point like a conductor's baton instead of treating it like a weapon.
You would think that this gun he's holding is a hot curling iron and he wants to keep it as far away from his body and that holding it hurts, so he only holds it with a couple fingers at a time.
It's so weird, and I can't help but notice every time he's on screen with the fucking thing. Just like, here, bro, hold it like this, all right? It's not hard. People have been doing this with weapons in media forever. Okay?
Especially once like he's got Makos running behind him and they actually know how to hold a gun. It just makes him look even worse. So there's this pretty good running gun where you find out that despite her completely buffoon ideas to bust Trip over the head with a fucking potted plant or whatever, and then run off screaming in the night, like, she clowns a lot of security guards.
There's a really weird
catwalks. Like, she's it. I thought for a second maybe I was watching the prequel to John Wick.
There was a stunt where she jumps off a catwalk in engineering, like shoots the phaser up into the air John Woo style, and then lands flat on her back. Like, that was the plan. Like, yes, my padded back. That is where I'm going to land on this stunt. It does work in a weird way, but it was also very strange.
And I want to say, for the record, too, this, what was her name, Nikita? You contrast her with whoever they brought in for Precious Cargo.
Oh, yeah. La Femme Nikita here is definitely a way better actress. No doubt about it.
And for being very attractive and, like, good at the sensual scenes that they put her in, like, they're ridiculous scenes, but she does a good job portraying them. when they have her go into like this action killer mode, uh, it's all plausible, and I think she sells it very well.
Yeah, she pulls it down,
And
and
it's not Shakespeare they're having her produce, but when you take Reed, who's cast as the fucking guns guy for Star Trek Enterprise, and she's running around looking more competent than he does on screen, credit where credit's due.
I will say that, you know, what's the right way to put this? LaFemme Nikita is definitely cast in this episode for her looks, but she also delivers on what she's being asked to do very well. And that was actually Scott Bakula's quote about it. Was, you know, there was two quotes from actors in this. One is Dominic Keating going like, "That girl was so hot, I forgot my lines," literally. And then second was Scott Bakula, a man with more class, was like, "Yeah, she was really asked to play like a Mara Hadi, spy seductress. She really was asked to do a lot, and she did a great job in the episode." And I agree with Scott Bakula in this regard. Whatever shade we're throwing here as regards to the construction and choices and, shall we say, shallowness of the appeal, it is not the actress's fault. She actually does a very good job.
I think there is enough cool stuff going on with her in terms of her alien powers, her looks, her adeptness with action sequences, and I think they build enough bad history, because by the end she's very clearly has a fond viewpoint of Enterprise, right?
Yeah.
Archer's white knighting, nobody taking advantage or exploiting her, and learning to whatever degree she can about the crew. Like by the end, she's trying to pump the brakes on what the Xindi are planning.
Yeah, and gives up some information too of
Um,
her own free will.
I'm really hoping that she becomes a reoccurring character, because I think that would be neat for her to cross paths with Enterprise again and try to atone for taking advantage and, effectively raping several members of the crew.
The aftermath of said sexual-ish exploitation is revealed, and unfortunately for T'Pol, she's basically in a bit of a coma at the moment because it was particularly harsh on her because she resisted. But Phlox feels like she's got it fixed. But this does incense Archer enough that he goes down to the brig
Getting their
and
money out of them new sets quick, man.
starts interrogating her rather forcefully, trying to get some information, which she seems hesitant to provide. But soon enough, the people she was trying to contact get off the ship, make themselves known. And Reed relates that the biosigns on the ships are, in fact, Xindi reptilians, which they know because that was the race of the species that was piloting the probe that killed 7 million people, which Archer says very clearly. So it's go time. It's their first military conflict with the Xindi. Power the weapons, get the whole plating online. Let's throw down. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's throw it on. Here's some criticisms. 2 ships are creeping up on Enterprise's ass to go fuck him up. Archer spends as long as he possibly can down in the brig, getting absolutely no information from this prisoner. They know that these guys are probably coming over there to rescue her. So why there aren't Makos like covering every inch of the corridor between the brig and the airlock is beyond me. And I feel like they got a free pass back in the Space Pirate episode for not being ready for this kind of nonsense when they saw bad guys coming up, to the point where I wasn't even considering like, maybe these fucking 30 Marines should be out, patrolling. Like, when Warship Voyager had Kazon guardsmen standing on the bridge with rifles. Like, at that point, this is what Enterprise should be doing. And I feel like they really get caught flat-footed, and I almost wanted to see like Archer tear Reed a new asshole on why the ship was so poorly prepared for a boarding party.
Well, it's a classic problem. All of your guys with promotions are slightly wounded, so you can't deploy them on this mission, so you're stuck in one piece.
Yeah.
Rookies with assault rifles and no good armor. That was the problem. Was like if they had had some of the lieutenants, captains, or colonels there, they'd have the plasma guns. They have like all the perks. Then you wouldn't have that issue. But they had to take the rookies. And these guys, they have the base level tech, and they are shitty shots, and they can take like one wound, and they fall the fuck over. And sure enough, when the Xindi show up, it is the reptiles and the insects, and they
Were
are
there insects?
yeah. There's a
Really?
shot of the insects. They shoot like the web gun down the hall and hit a
Oh, the
guy.
bugger gun?
Yeah,
No, no, yeah,
They're-
right. It was web gun. So this attack happens.
yeah, this fucking gunfight is a lot. There's a lot going on.
They blow the airlock door out. And again, they knew where these guys are going. So the fact there's only 3 Marines ready to go is very silly, but you get a run and gun through the ship where Xindi boarding parties force their way in. We get a look at these god-awful costumes we were talking about before where the Galaxy Quest bad guys storm in, and they have these purple gel glitter bodysuits.
Yes, I'm looking at it right now. It's a good description. It's not a fetching look. I mean, the makeup on the face and all of that's good. It's kind of got this weird like tentacles coming out the top. That's good. I like the makeup. I like the rifles. Rifles have a real Mass Effect look to them, actually. And their bodysuits completely suck ass. They're awful.
They look like they could have been like touring outfits for the Bangles.
Agreed.
They could have been dancing to Walk Like an Egyptian in those things. And they rip a line of destruction from the airlock back to that brig. And
apparently the Makos set their weapons to tickle because they just hit them and does nothing.
They go down. You see a very clear distinction between hero character phasers and no-name phasers.
Yes.
Where like Marines and Enterprise security guys will like put 2 to 3 shots directly on the attacking Xindi to no effect before these guys get zapped and the humans get taken out. Whereas like Archer is just one shot bingoing people because he's
got the good tech. He's got the laser rifle.
Maybe those generic security guys, they're rookies and they made mistakes and they didn't like charge their phasers overnight, so they came in at like 15% battery and like low battery mode had kicked in, which like just sets it to tickle. The Xindi have some very interesting weapons. There was the aforementioned web gun.
Yep.
I really like the snot launcher. So this thing shoots a booger to the wall, and then the security guy's like, what's that? And then the booger just blows needle spores out that just rip 3 people apart, basically. I'm assuming a lot of people die on this raid.
They don't actually say, do they?
No, it's a crazy ending on this.
Yeah, it just ends. Just very suddenly.
They march their way down. They blow up the brig. Surprise, Enterprise, jailbreak episodes go 2 ways.
Sometimes the jail that is broken is yours.
Mm-hmm.
And they're escorting the VIP out. And again, the action's good. A lot of guns, a lot of shoot from cover. Like a lot of the details that we actually talked a whole bunch of shit about on this show in prior seasons. So all the gunfights this season have been excellent, and this is no exception. And I guess the big moment at the end is that one of the Xindi reptiles decides to hang back and like try and give Archer some head wounds because he's like, I know you're blue balls, man. Let me get your J out here.
Mm-hmm.
And like gets into a rough and tumble with him and gets subdued by a shock tonfa on the part of one of the Makos. And so they have a prisoner as well as his weapons. But the rest of them get away. They go back the way they came, and then they bounce. They leave. They do not fuck around any further. And then when we say this, then it suddenly ends. That's basically it, because there's a shot at the Legion of Doom where they're talking about how...
Well, no. they Enterprise they get back to the med bay, and Archer's like, okay, well,
No,
to Paul.
we'll get to that.
Oh, is that actually after?
Yeah. So they do the. I'm not sure. I don't remember which order they go in, but the two scenes are one on Enterprise and then one on the Legion of Doom. And the Legion of Doom
Geonosis,
is
yeah.
they bring in Rajiin because she's got the data on humans' biology so they can make the bioweapon.
Well, it's a
And
surprise, right?
yeah,
The
because
the
the other
reptile
three
people.
races were like, "Why the fuck you do that? We voted that down. You could have exposed us. You could have gotten found out. This could have gone poorly." But they're like, "No, well, we rated them and we got the data. We needed to have a backup plan. We're actually fucking brilliant."
So again, this is where I'm confused. The weapon I had assumed was going to be a Death Star laser to blow up Earth.
Correct. That is what Degra is working on.
When he
This
had
is the
his lab explode, I thought what they were saying is basically no. Actually, the weapon we've been working on this whole time is a bioweapon. We're
no.
making
That's the
space.
backup plan.
That's the backup plan.
The reptiles want to build the backup plan. The Xindi primates want to make the laser.
Okay. And they go, well, now we've got Rajan, and she's got biological data on the humans, and now we can go into season 6 of Voyager, or was it 7? And the Borg Queen can have her grand plan to introduce space aids to Earth in the rain with chemtrails. Like seriously, like they just did the alien bad guys want to bio weapon Earth. I feel like it's too soon to be tapping this button again. I would have liked to see maybe, I don't know, the Sea World people be like, well, you just fucking attacked Enterprise and killed like 12 people. Why didn't you just take a couple captive back here? Like, we don't need LaFemme Nikita's biological data. We could have just brought like test subjects. If you're gonna fucking attack Enterprise, bring back Archer. Archer was right there at the fucking airlock. You could have just kidnapped his ass. What are you fucking idiots doing? Like, that's the kind of level of dissent I want in the Legion of Doom, where they're just openly calling each other on their fucking stupid moves.
And then the scene back at
Well,
Enterprise is
real quick,
that yeah,
Femme Nikita's like, no, the humans are nice. Leave them alone. And then she gets dragged off.
yes, very quickly, like
Oh,
get her
she's
out of
also,
here
by the
before
way,
she.
turns out before they put her out in front of the tribunal, they let her go ahead and jump into Seven of Nine's old leotard collection so she can show up in one last extremely form-fitting, leave nothing to the imagination outfits.
But at least this one covers her, even if it is still very flattering. Then they go back to Enterprise, and we find out that the one guy they grabbed apparently had a genetically enhanced suicide gland, killed himself rather than be able to be interrogated. And Archer's pretty pissed because these dudes stormed in, their weapons were shit hot. They were able to shrug off phaser shots, and then they bounced using some sort of weird spatial vortex. So all of this is added up to bad times.
And they
He
stole his
orders,
new girlfriend.
yeah, and he orders everyone to do their jobs, and he's pissed, and then the episode is just over. So um, it certainly moves the plot forward. It does a lot to develop the actual season 3 plot. So I don't mark it down for that, but late stage Berman, the super leaning hard on getting the teenage eyeballs on this by having as many boobies as possible, as much seduction, close talking, touchy feely, super soft core porn nonsense. I don't like it. That's not what I watched Star Trek for, and it can go fuck off.
Can you think of any other big name sci-fi property that acts this shameless in terms of sophomoric sex play?
Firefly?
To the point where
Firefly
there's
leans
like,
in a little bit harder to it. But I wouldn't even. I mean, that's a fraction of the size of Star Trek in terms of its cultural imprint. It's
to,
also supposed to be that way because it's just a space western.
I mean, this is bad.
Yeah, it's real bad. It's
And I'm going to say again, I'm willing to take this entry and the level of blue they go with her forcing herself on everybody and really making herself into a nuisance borderline rapist. If they're going to bring this character back out and force her to confront her actions and do something with this where this episode becomes important and it's not all just a throwaway trick sex gimmick episode.
Bad news.
Come on, really?
Yeah. I mean, there is some commentary from Letha Nikita where she's like, "Oh, maybe I'll be able to come back because they kind of indicated that it might happen. We'll see what happens," and then just never did.
That's a big miss, man. Like, I wonder if this episode was just really received poorly at the time and they're like, back off of it. But I felt like, again, if you're going to bring someone on, give them this much screen time and have them like really get one over on Enterprise to this level, it would have deserved to be brought back around. So big miss.
All right, sir, what are we watching next week?
We're going to be moving into season 3, episode 5, Impulse. There's like a bent up space twig. Maybe that's a Vulcan ship. I can't tell. After finding the drifting hull of a Vulcan cruiser inside an asteroid field, Captain Archer and his crew are surprised to find Vulcans alive on it. When they are stranded there, they must find out what happened to the crew before T'Pol succumbs to the same fate. This is what I want. This is exactly what I want. This sounds badass, and I'm fucking ready.
Yeah, we take a hard shift in quality here, and I'm looking forward to it. This is going to take a lot of the Peter specific senses, you know.
Mm.
And if you want to listen to Peter himself get rock hard from industrial accidents, you can join us on Feature Please anytime, anywhere, every week on Thursday. Join us on Patreon. Join us on Facebook. Join us on Discord. Join us on Twitter. Email us at featureplease@gmail.com.
Have we had anything good recently on the email?
We did. I'm glad you asked. We had a fan who sent us an email that recently apparently found the show. His name is Alex. And so shout out to you, man. I appreciate you doing that. And he seems to be a newer Trek fan. So he really talked about how he kind of got introduced to Trek. And he's been to some recent Star Trek fan conventions, particularly in Chicago area, apparently. And that, he's a little soft on new Trek like a lot of us, but he likes Orville and that sort of thing. So
hell yeah, dude.
Much obliged, sir. Thanks for sending us such a long email and letting us know that you're a fan and what your thoughts on Trek are. And everyone's welcome to engage with us. Discord's actually been much more active lately. So I have a permanent link on the Facebook group for that. And for the Facebook group, if you want to get in the Discord, if you want to do anything, email is great. I do check that all the time. Again, featureplease@gmail.com. You can DM me on Twitter at featureplease. Or you can find us on Facebook at Feature Please. And hopefully we'll see you somewhere. Peace.